Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad you could. Oh, David Colby gave me the TikTok shives this time. I don't. Yeah, I haven't seen Dana in the chat. Um. Anyway, hi everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you for returning. As many of you know, we missed our regularly scheduled Ask Away 2 weeks ago because I was having dental surgery. Now, a couple of my wonderful patrons and members asked questions about my dental appointment, so I'm not going to go into any detail about it here, except to say I'm okay. I have I have three fewer teeth, but I'm okay. So as always, and hi to everybody in the chat, by the way. And I actually I don't usually do this, but I saw that X Demonox asked a question in the live chat before we went live, and I just can't resist. Usually, I wait until I get through the patron and member questions before I answer questions from the chat. But X Demonox asked if Ernest P. Worrell was in Star Trek, which Star Trek would he be in, and what would be his job? So, as an Ernest mark, in addition to being a Star Trek mark, I feel unusually qualified to tackle this question. So, personally, I don't really think it matters what era or what show they're in, but I think just to play to Ernest's strengths, I think it should be like, Star Trek Enterprise era, like 22nd century era. And CMAC, it's a little weird. Yeah, it's not. I've more or less gotten used to it. But anyway, so let's say Enterprise era, 22nd century. And here's the deal. Vern is the chief engineer on a ship. And Ernest is the member of his engineering team who is always butting in because he thinks he knows better and trying to fix the problem and making it worse. Right. So you can have bits where the warp core goes offline and Ernest shoves his way in and he goes, well, there's your problem right there, Vern. See that little wire right there? Looks like it's got a little short in it. And then you'll, walk away twitching, and that's Ernest in Star Trek. Anyway, now I will turn to the pre-submitted patron and member questions. And let me see, there they are. And the first one comes to us from our friend, General Contact Unit Problem Child, who says, imagine you're running a Discord community. There's a person in that community who mentions they used to be far right. A group of POCs and queer people come to you and say, we don't feel safe here so long as he's here. Either he goes or we do. What would you do? A while back, a YouTuber I follow did a video series about how you don't have to forgive fascists. When I asked him about that in a stream, this was a hypothetical that came up. He'd kick out the ex-fascist even if they seemed reformed. So would I. Yeah, no, so would I. In that case, I would consider that a needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few situation. Even if he was being nice, even if he wasn't causing any trouble, if multiple people in the community, especially if they were from marginalized groups themselves and they felt especially unwelcome or threatened or whatever because of this reformed fascist's presence, I wouldn't hesitate to get rid of him. And also, it's not like you're executing the guy. You're booting him from an online community. It's not the end of the world. And if it does feel like the end of the world to him, that's his fucking problem. Like it should not be that big of a deal to be kicked out of an online forum, especially if it's for those reasons. And if he really is a truly reformed fascist, he should, even though it might sting or might be annoying to him, he should understand. He should get it. So no, I would not hesitate for a second to get rid of that person. Absolutely. Brian Baker, Steve, hope your dental appointment went okay. Question. With the Supreme Court backing Trump regularly, what do you think the next right will be that they strip away? Keep up the good work, and if you need a suggestion for late seating, please consider Heathers or Grosse Point Blank. I think we've done Heathers, but Grosse Point Blank is a good suggestion. I will nudge Jason about that and see if he will add it to the pool. what's the next right that they will strip away? I mean, they're hammering away on voting pretty hard. I mean, that's been an ongoing project for many, 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 many years, but it feels like yeah, they're gonna, if they can't strip away the right to vote, just all the way, if they can't pull it out by the roots, then they will at least, cut it down as close to the ground as they can. Yeah, it's going to be something voting related, I think, as it has been for, for a while. Not just depriving people, not just disenfranchising people, but as we've seen with the redistricting efforts, the Virginia State Supreme Court, which is right leaning, just struck down the publicly voted on, the publicly mandated redistricting plan in Virginia. And of course, Tennessee just voted to redraw its districts to favor the Republicans. So I mean, it's they're coming after, if not your right to vote, then the effectiveness of your vote. They've made that very clear. Donovan Boyle, hey Steve, hope you're feeling better. What is your favorite bad movie you've reviewed on the Late Seating podcast? Oh man, my favorite bad movie. I mean, I want to say Roadhouse, but I'm always on the fence as to whether Roadhouse is a bad movie. Like whether you consider it a bad movie or not, I love Roadhouse. The Patrick Swayze, the original, not the Jake Gyllenhaal one. Although actually, I thought the Jake Gyllenhaal one was fine. It doesn't measure up to the Swayze version, but it was fine. I liked it. But anyway, the original Swayze Roadhouse. And the question that has always challenged me is it that way on purpose? Because if Roadhouse is the way Roadhouse is on purpose, as the result of a conscious series of decisions by its creators to make it that way, then Roadhouse is a fucking great movie. But if it just sort of turned out to be the entertaining schlock that it is accidentally, if it's a so bad it's good situation, well then you can't say that. But if you would consider Roadhouse to be a bad movie, then it's definitely Roadhouse. And it's probably not even close. I would have to go back and look through our previous episodes to even see what what second place would be. Zulu Romeo, choosing a newish question as your Dawkins video answered my original question very well. Well, I'm sorry that I accidentally screwed up your question. Today, I learned the Simpsons meme website Frinkiac received a major revamp, which looks fabulous, and now I can watch Marge crumping all day. Anyway, speaking of Simpsons, what with creator Matt Groening mentioned in the context of Epstein, my having seen your Richard Dawkins video today, also being reminded of the allegations against Neil Gaiman, and hoping nothing awful or salacious is learned of David Attenborough, who turns 100 this week. How crushed do you feel when a hero of yours goes bad? It depends on the hero and it depends on what they did. I mean, it really. Dana asked a similar question to this a while ago, and I mean, at this point in my life, it's hard to imagine a personal quote unquote hero of mine, a famous person whose work I admire or who I really like. It's hard to imagine any of them like really crushing me, like really ruining my day emotionally if it turned out that they were a piece of shit. But I mean, it really depends. Like finding out the various things that I have now known about David Copperfield for a while. That was disillusioning when I first learned about that stuff when I was probably in my mid to late 30s. And then when I learned, about his close association with Jeffrey Epstein just more recently, just within the last couple of years, that was very disillusioning. If I had learned about that stuff when I was a teenager or in my early 20s, even, that probably would have been really, really devastating. Because watching David Copperfield magic specials every year was like a big part of my childhood. And if I had learned all of that stuff for the first time when I was much younger, it probably would have, I mean, I wouldn't have gone into a fucking, downward spiral or anything, but it would have hit me a lot harder emotionally than it did, when I learned it when I was a much older person. So I mean, nowadays, I don't know. It depends. It's like I said, it's hard to think of of who it would be that would like really crush me if I found out, oh my god, they were actually a monster. I'm not saying that I would be able to just shrug it off and say, no big deal. It would probably, affect me, but would it crush me? Would it ruin my day? Would it, you know, have any kind of like really profound effect on me? It's hard to imagine who that could be. The still unemployed some random geek. Sorry to hear about that, my friend. Joey Fire Lame Deer wants everyone to go research and share PACE-Law. Joey wants folks to contact their leadership and say this is not okay. The government has approved drilling to happen on an indigenous Lakota sacred site, just like the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline, and the Altana Forest Defense to stop Cop City. Indigenous folks are trying to protect their land, and the U.S. government is saying, fuck you, drill baby drill. The land defenders will need bail support. And the next question from Geek following up on that, some random geek who is terrible at talking to liberals. Here is one site with info on some direct action, and it's ndncollective.org/breaking-community-members-take. It's right there. It's right there. And actually, I was negligent. I should have put this in the video description for this live stream, and I didn't. So when the show is over, I will add it to the video description of the live stream, and if people want to access it there, they can do so, but it's on your screen right now. ndncollective.org/breaking community members take direct action to stop drilling at PACE-Law, separated by hyphens. One quick thing about, I think that's supposed to be Atlanta's Cop City, not Altana's. But anyway, the majority of the citizens were against it, but the Democrats in charge pushed it through. Don't forget charitylinks.page. Even though apparently I alone should just financially support my friends, I guess no one else will. The government won't either, even under Dems. So let's not lose the thread there and do our due diligence and keep an eye on the PACE-Law situation. The brain. All right. Here's my pitch for a Starfleet Academy Season 2 gimmick filler episode. Robert Picardo teaching Sam a lesson about being a good Starfleet officer by reenacting a good episode of Voyager. The gimmick, though, is it's Robert Picardo playing all the characters. No CGI, no cameos from old actors, just a one-man Robert Picardo masterclass in acting. What do you think? I don't know if I could sit still for an entire episode of that. And the only thing that's stopping me from saying absolutely not is the appeal of seeing Picardo do that. Generally speaking, if somebody were to say, let's do an episode, let's do another, like Trials and Tribulations, where the new show is going to revisit an episode from the old show. And it feels like Star Trek has just been doing nothing but Trials and Tribulations ever since Trials and Tribulations. So I'm just fucking done with that. I want Star Trek shows to be about what they're about, not about the other shows. But the prospect of Robert Picardo doing that is very intriguing. Although now I wonder, is that something that somebody should just pay him to do at a con? Like, should that be an episode of the show? Because the idea is very entertaining. The idea of Robert Picardo doing a one-man show version of a Voyager episode and playing all the characters, like that sounds really fun. Do I want it to be in a Star Trek show, or do I want it to just be something he does that I can watch in some other context? I don't know, but I really, really like that idea. Razzle Dazzle Basil. What are some of the things you are looking forward to in Starfleet Academy Season 2, if we hopefully do get to watch it? I'd personally like to see Sam and the Doctor's relationship demonstrated and explored, Tig Notaro lead a mission, and Darum and Jaden go on some sort of silly amusement park date on the moon. Oh man, I love that last one. Darum and Jaden on a silly amusement park date. How about this? Darum and Jaden go on a double date to an amusement park on the moon, and they're each with different people. Right. So maybe Jaden can go with what's his ass, Kyle, and Darum can bring somebody else. But inevitably, Darum and Jaden start spending more time together, and it turns into one of those deals where they ditch their dates and they end up hanging out together. And maybe that could be the episode where they actually do get together, or they get together briefly and then complications flow from that. I don't know, but I do really like that idea. And give me all the Sam and Tignataro you got. I love Sam. She was my favorite of the cadet characters in the first season. I would really like to see more of her. And Tignataro was great, and we kind of saw her lead a mission in the season finale. So I would love to see more of that kind of thing from her. I'd love to see more of her interaction with the cadets. Especially in like kind of real world situations and outside of a classroom, because that stuff with Jet Reno and the cadets on the ship as they were sort of scrambling to survive and ultimately save the day in the season finale was maybe my favorite part of that season finale. Brian Preston, Demonox, excuse me. You sometimes describe Neelix as a cat, but whenever I watch Voyager, I can't help but think of Snarf from Thundercats. Not really a question. I just wanted to leave you stuck with that mental image permanently. You're welcome. What's funny is when I think of Neelix as Snarf, the mental image doesn't change all that much. It still just kind of looks like Neelix. Just shorter. He's shorter if he's Snarf, but still, it's, yeah, I like that. I feel like somebody has said that before, but it makes a lot of sense. Neelix and Snarf. That's a good comparison there. Amadeus Schubelgruber. What a great name. Hi, Steve. The social climate gets rougher and rougher. Apart from real life fascists, there's also a whole subculture of rage bait YouTubers who generate hate for views and money, spreading lies and talking shit about people they don't even know. What would you do against people like that? Just ignore them? Or, in short, how do you deal with online harassment and defamation? Okay, well, I guess you're asking about like, what do I do about people like that if they target me personally? And the answer is nothing. I completely ignore it. If some other YouTuber makes like an attack video on me, number one, I don't watch it. If I even know about it. I make no effort to discover these videos if they exist. And I mean, I know they exist, but like if a new one comes out, I make no effort to discover it. I don't ask that people keep me up to date on who's making shitty videos about me. And if I do happen to run across one, I don't watch it. I don't ever watch it. And if I haven't already done so, I block the person who made it on every platform that I could potentially encounter them. And if their supporters start showing up in my comment sections or in the replies to my posts on social media, I block them too. But I don't ever engage, and I don't ever let it affect what I do on this channel. I don't make videos about it. I don't respond to it. I don't waste a second of my creative energy on it. I just continue to do what I was going to do anyway. Because why should some prick who makes a video lying about me or attacking me or insulting me, trying to get my attention? Number one, why should I give them my attention? And number two, why should I give them even a modicum of influence over what I do? I shouldn't. So I don't. So that's how I handle it when they are, coming after me. I completely ignore it, and, like that. But in a more general sense, when, I think the best thing to do is to ignore them. And if you are a YouTuber yourself, to continue to do whatever your thing is, make the videos you want to make, or watch the videos you want to watch. Or do both if you are both a content creator and someone who, spends time watching videos, like, and don't give them an ounce of influence over your work or your viewing habits. Just completely freeze them out, because what they do is completely of zero value. They don't have an act of their own. They have nothing positive or even substantive to contribute. They're completely worthless. They're parasites that live on the work and the the effort of other people who are better at this than they are. And like you said, they try to generate try to grow an audience and generate income for themselves by stirring up hate and controversy, and fuck them. Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to just deprive them of what they are desperate to have, which is your attention. Chibo D of Kitsugi-sai, what do you want most from life? More of it. I want it to last as long as it possibly can, and I want to be able to enjoy it for as long as I can. That's what I want from life. An enemy spy who is depressed after the revelation that none of his brother's kids share his DNA. Steve, you get a call from the WWE. They want to attract. I remember this question. I looked at this question earlier this week. You get a call from the WWE. They want to attract a classy brand of new fans and have pegged you as the perfect man to adapt your favorite classic novel, The Great Gatsby, into a wrestling storyline after seeing your video on it. Tell us how you turned this book into a series of wrestling matches, and tell us which wrestlers portray which characters. I mean, Cody's got to be Gatsby, right? Cody's got to be Gatsby. So Cody's Gatsby. Ricky Starks or Ricky Saints would be Nick. I guess Liv Morgan could be Daisy. Liv Morgan could be Daisy, and sure, Dominic could be Tom. We can stick with the pre-existing alliances. Dominic Mysterio could be Tom. Yeah, I don't know. Here's the trouble. I was talking about this in private with Dana the other day because I told her about this question. It's really hard to book The Great Gatsby as a wrestling story because the babyface loses. And in the book, the babyface and the heel never actually have a blow-off match. If you assume that Jay Gatsby is the top babyface and that Tom Buchanan is the top heel, they do have a face-off, but it's not conclusive. So they have a match against each other, but they don't have a blow-off. The blow-off, literally, in the case of The Great Gatsby, coming out of the barrel of a gun, the blow-off is between Gatsby and Myrtle's husband, who is not a super important character, in the narrative until he does what he does near the end. And so as a wrestler, he would be a relatively minor player in the show who would then be the one to ultimately defeat the top babyface. So in wrestling terms, it really doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense as a wrestling story at all, because if you want wrestling to be good, I firmly believe that wrestling has to be very simple. It has to be, point A to point B. You can't get complicated. You can't get literary with wrestling. It doesn't work. Wrestling has to be as simple as you can make it. That's what makes it work. That's what gives it its power when it has power. That's what makes it entertaining when it is entertaining. So it's hard to think of how to adapt. The only thing I could think of is I would have to liberally depart from the story of The Great Gatsby in order to make it work for wrestling, so that we could have a Gatsby versus Tom blow-off match, and Gatsby would have to win, because in the end, the babyface has to win, unless you're building up the heel for somebody else. And why would you be doing that in this case? Who the fuck? Tom Buchanan ain't going to be a star, right? So that probably draw what you can from that. Neil Klein, with the passing of Jerry Conway, I immediately thought that this comics legend would be a perfect subject for you to expand upon. As much as you try not to be needlessly sentimental and schmaltzy, the truth is that I watch your channel precisely because you hit emotional chords that we all relate to. These are behind what motivated us to love these media in the first place. So, steeples fingers and leans back in chair. Plans on making this, Steve? I do want to make a Jerry Conway video because he was an absolute legend in the comics industry, and he did pass away very recently. Um, it's not on my agenda right now. Um, and I know it's probably not going to be a best Superman or best Batman ever at any time soon because I know what the next several of those are going to be. I kind of have the next several of each of those lined up. Um, but no, I don't know when I'm going to do it. And by the time I get around to it, it won't be, it won't be a direct response to his passing because, enough time will have gone by that it won't feel as recent, it won't be as recent, but I would definitely love to do a Jerry Conway video because he was, yeah, he was a legend. He was a legend. He was one of the greats. And he deserves to have his work recognized. So yeah, I will do one at some point. I can't promise when. David Colby is currently being devoured by millions of small crabs. It bugs me how fans have ruined the hey, let's have X. If I say we should have a Xindi bridge officer, your immediate reaction is, ugh, fan service. No, no. They're cool looking designs, and there's a ton of storytelling potential in their history and relations with humans, which cuts to the core of Star Trek. But that's because I'm a best selling author, not a loser nerd who doesn't know how to write. Well, and you know my number one rule, which is story first. If it works, it works. You know what I mean? Your task here, really, as far as I'm concerned, if you have an idea to write a Star Trek story that features a Xindi character, and you are afraid that my reaction will be, ugh, fan service, then your task as a writer is to shove that down my fucking throat and make me eat those words by writing a story so good that even someone like me who is utterly allergic to fan service will be unable to deny how good it is. That is your task as the writer. And it's a tall order. And I'm not saying you're not up to it, but many writers aren't, as witnessed by the number of times Star Trek and other media franchises have indulged in that kind of fan service, and it hasn't turned out so great. So, but I believe in you. Incoming message from the big giant head, Agent Meister. Peldor Joy, Steve, I've been rewatching Third Rock from the Sun for the first time in 30 years. Seeing it through mature eyes, I've come to appreciate the series. It doesn't always hit the mark, but it does a hell of a lot more than it misses. The first time I saw John Lithgow was as the bad guy in Cliffhanger. To go from that to Dick Solomon is the definition of an actor with range. Have you seen Third Rock? And what are your opinions on Lithgow in general, the upcoming Harry Potter show notwithstanding? Yeah, I mean, I have lost some respect for him as a person as a result of the Harry Potter thing and his attempts to defend that. First of all, yes, I did watch Third Rock. I thought it was great. And yeah, as you probably know, a lot of people were saying that at the time that Lithgow was a revelation in that role because he was primarily known as a serious actor and a serious actor in film. And, then for him to not only do a situation comedy, but such a broad situation comedy and playing such a big theatrical, outlandish character, like the sense of humor of Third Rock was really, big and out there and silly. And he just absolutely nailed it. Like from the very beginning, he was great at it. And it was a side of him that had never really been seen. And so people were amazed. I think Lithgow, yeah, again, setting aside the Harry Potter thing, Lithgow's a fantastic actor. He's incredible. I don't think I've ever watched anything that he was in and thought, yeah, but you know who was the shits in that? John Lithgow. Like he's great. He's great in everything, and he's incredibly versatile. He's obviously very good at comedy, but he's an incredible dramatic actor too, and he can play sympathetic. He can play villainous and intimidating and sort of scary. He can play, kind and gentle. He can play wise and authoritative. Like he has amazing range, and he never hits a wrong note. And he has great screen presence and a great voice and a great look. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. Um, the grumpy monkey who's had it up to here talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Time for a rant. Upon his re-election, your dipshit of a president found a nice shiny toy he could play with, the U.S. military. So he declared war on Iran. Now the financial markets don't know if they're coming or going, and the price of everything is going up because Trump wanted to play general and or deflect from the Epstein files. Anyone remember those? If any good comes from this war, it'll be that the GOP will get their asses handed to them in the midterms. If not, then your country is a lost cause. Well, yeah, not really a question, a rant as promised. But I mean, one I can get behind. Like I agree, especially if the GOP does not suffer serious losses later this year in the midterms, then I mean even with the attempts to sort of shore themselves up with gerrymandering, I mean if the American people do not turn out in droves to throw the bums out this time, then yeah, it does feel a little bit like, all right, well then what's even the point, you know? But yes, I agree with you. And Darth, there's no typo this time, I'm sure. I don't think there is. Hey, Captain, I was going to ask about something that bothered me recently, but it felt more like I was just complaining. So instead of that, how was the wisdom teeth extraction and recovery? Mine didn't bother me, and I only had them removed because food kept getting stuck in the holes, then went back to work the next day. If I worked outside of my house, if I were not a YouTuber, if I were performing some useful function in society, I probably could have gone back to work the next day too. Um I had some pain for a few days following, but it was nothing that the, you know, extra strength ibuprofen I was prescribed couldn't handle. He offered, my oral surgeon offered to write me a prescription for um, an opiate for like hydrocodone, I think, but I didn't need it. Um, and I didn't need the money that I would have gotten from selling it. So no, it went very well. This one down here, this wisdom tooth was reluctant to go. Let's say this one up here, the whole reason I went to the dentist to see about getting my wisdom teeth taken out at, then 45, now 46 years old, was because this one up here on top was broken. Um, I didn't even realize it was one of my wisdom teeth. I just, because it had been a while, full, confession, it had been a while since I'd been to the dentist. Um, and I didn't even know this was a wisdom tooth. I didn't know my wisdom teeth had even come in. I thought they were still under the gum. I never, like my dentist, when I was going regularly to the dentist, that wasn't something we really discussed. They never said like, you're going to have to do something about those wisdom teeth eventually. Like, as far as I knew, they were just kind of staying where they were and they weren't causing any trouble. But this one, and this one erupted, came out, and this one up here broke. So I just went to the dentist to see about having a broken tooth either fixed or pulled. And they said, oh, yeah, it's your wisdom tooth. And, you have two more that came in. We might as well take them out. Because of what you pointed out, you can, there's space between the tooth and the gum, and food can get stuck in there, and then it can become a problem over time. And because they're way, way back in the back of your head, they're hard to clean. You can't clean them like you can your other teeth. So they said, we'll just get rid of all the ones that have erupted. So that's what my oral surgeon did. But this one down here was quite an ordeal to get out. I mean, it's still, I say an ordeal. The whole thing was over in probably 15 or 20 minutes. Like, it was not, in terms of the amount of time it took, it was not like an arduous process. But I did need some additional numbing on this side, because there was when they were pulling out this one, it was, they needed to break out the power tools. And then also it took a lot of pressure to get it out. And that was not pleasant. It didn't hurt necessarily, but there was just a lot of pressure and it didn't feel good. But I mean, the broken one came right out. And this one up here practically came right out. Like, it took a little bit more effort, but it was not nearly as bad as this one down here. This fucker did not want to come out. It held on for dear life. But even with all of that, like I said, it felt like I had a sore throat for a day or two. That's kind of what the pain was. What it felt like. It felt like I had a sore throat, and there was like an ache in the bottom, or on this side. Didn't really have this one. Didn't get taken out, so there was an ache on this side mostly, and some swelling, but not super noticeable. Um, and within a few days, I felt mostly fine. And then the sutures dissolved. And after a week, I went back to more or less eating regular food. I was on a soft food diet for a week. Um, and now I'm more or less back to normal. I'm still supposed to clean the extraction sites, the sockets with an irrigation syringe for a few more weeks until they completely close up. But other than that, I'm pretty much back to normal. So yeah, everything went great. Everything went great. Buck Melanoma. Hey, how's it going? I met Brent Spiner and got his autograph at the local comic expo. Really enjoyed cosplaying. Wasn't too happy about the cement floors I had to walk from April 23rd to 26th. The cosplay parade was canceled on Friday morning, more because of the high winds. You don't want to risk clothing malfunctions when that happens. I understand. What's your favorite cosplay or character you've portrayed? I mean, I guess I'm kind of, if we're thinking about just like Star Trek related stuff, I'm pretty much talking about the characters that I've played in my Starfleet jobs videos. Um, in terms of costume, I think my favorite is probably the one that I wore for the Starfleet chaplain, because it's the black version of the Monster Maroon uniforms from the original series movie. So it's like it was a Monster Maroon, but it was black instead of red. And that was cool. Because I love those uniforms. Those are still probably my favorite Star Trek uniforms. But in terms of like the character that was the most fun to play, probably either the Starfleet lawyer, the first one, or the Starfleet janitor, which I think was what was like the second or third one. It was one of the earlier ones. Starfleet janitor was a lot of fun to play. And the chef, because I got to do my Savagarian accent. It sounds like a bad French accent, but it is a perfect Savagarian accent. He was fun. And that was kind of a cool costume as well, because it wasn't, strictly speaking, a Star Trek costume. It was like a chef's coat that I had that was red, that I had like a Starfleet, a badge on. So that was fun. Yeah, so those were probably my favorites. Wolfram and Hart, Steve, you've spoken about how and why Superman is your favorite comic book character. Out of curiosity or a suggestion, have you watched the 2-part Justice League animated series episode Hereafter, written by Dwayne McDuffie, who sadly died unexpectedly and was extremely talented? Definitely agree with that. It's got some Death of Superman vibes, but part 2 is my favorite Superman story, about his character and working with villain Vandal Savage, voiced by Phil Morris. Just a suggestion. I may have watched this many, many years ago when the Justice League cartoon was originally broadcast, but I have not revisited it in a very long time. So I will take your advice and go watch that next time I remember that I want to watch it, because that does sound interesting. But I may have watched it way back in the day, but I don't remember. So thank you for the suggestion. Andy Lawler, who would unplug Giuliani to change my to charge my travel bidet. Hell, I'd unplug Giuliani, period. Hey, Steve, the Obama Presidential Center is opening in Chicago on June 19th. Might make me a road trip upstate this summer. President Obama's recent interview with Colbert reminded me of a much better time in our country, a time of capable leadership, international respect, and complete sentences. My question this time, should President Obama wear a tan suit to the big, beautiful funeral? Thanks. Have a great weekend, everybody. The tan suit to the funeral would be amazing. I would love that. I would love if he would do that. That would be great. Either that or just one of those T-shirts that has a tuxedo screen printed on it, just to show that he doesn't give a fuck. That would be great to be. The tan suit would be terrific. Don Quixote, this Trump regime is getting worse every day. Now we, the taxpayers, are supposed to pay for his ballroom, his arch, and the war with Iran. While we continue to be price gouged at the pump and grocery store, big corporations and the rich pay little to no taxes. It makes me wonder if we'll make it through to 2029. Even if we vote ourselves a Democrat controlled House and Senate, he'll still have executive orders at his disposal. He's already signed 259 executive orders as of May 7th. Your thoughts? Well, I agree it's a problem, but it would be far, far less of a problem if there was an opposition in the House and Senate, and an empowered opposition, if the Democrats had the majorities in the House and the Senate. A big reason why his executive orders have been as effective as they have been is because Congress has been willing to either back him up or just look the other way while he does stuff that he's probably not allowed to do. And if you'll notice, a lot of his executive orders, a lot of his more far reaching ones have been struck down by the courts because, I mean, and in many cases, even like conservative justices, like Bush appointees, or and even some of Trump's own appointees to the federal bench have struck down many of his executive orders just because he's doing shit that he's obviously not allowed to do. So the executive orders aren't as much of a problem and would be even less of a problem if there were not such a compliant Congress. But they are still a problem. I agree. I mean, the chief executive being a man like Donald Trump and having and wanting to do the things that Donald Trump wants to do is always going to be a problem. Do I think we'll make it to the next inauguration day? I think we probably will. Although maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part, but I think we'll probably make it. What condition will we be in? Now, that's a different question. And here's another one from Don Quixote, because if you are a patron and a member, you can submit 2 questions if you like. Just a short question for my Patreon submission. Did you ever watch My Secret Identity? It was a late 80s show with Jerry O'Connell. Kid gets accidentally zapped with a proton ray and gets superhero powers. I never watched it, but I know what you're referring to. I remember that it existed. As with so many things, I remember that it exists, but I have not watched it. So I will add that to my pile of things to watch as well, although I will slot it a little bit further down than that Justice League episode that was just recommended. I'll probably get around to that first. Kara the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. Loved your reviews of Shaman and Gothic. Are you going to do the same thing with Prey and Venom, even if you did them over 2 videos? Pretty please, nicely, Kara. Well, yes, Prey is going to be the next Best Batman Ever video, because I believe I've said I'm doing the first 3 storylines from Batman Legends of the Dark Knight as 3 consecutive Best Batman Ever videos, because I think those 3 stories are just that good and represent that book getting off to such a fantastic start. So yes, Prey will be the next Best Batman Ever video next month is the plan, because I've been trying to alternate Superman and Batman one month and then another. So this month, actually this weekend, I'm shooting a new Superman video to come out next week, and then there'll be a new Batman one next month. And I am going to get around to Venom at some point. And I mean, talk about the series Legends of the Dark Knight getting off to a great start. Yeah, Venom is the next storyline after Prey. So like the first 4 storylines in Legends of the Dark Knight, the first 20 issues were Shaman, Gothic, Prey, and Venom. Like that's a pretty good run. That's a pretty damn good run, especially for a brand new book. So I'm not going to do Venom right after Prey. I'm going to take a break from Legends of the Dark Knight and do some other Batman stuff. Actually, I think because this is the 40th anniversary, after Prey, the Best Batman Ever after that will be about The Dark Knight Returns, because this is the 40th anniversary of The Dark Knight Returns originally being published. So I'm going to do that. But yeah, at some point later, or maybe next year at some point, I'm going to do Venom. I'm going to get around to Venom at some point, but Prey is coming up soon. Simon Moody, with the elections here in the UK yesterday, one passing comment I saw multiple politicians make were words to the effect of, "The seat I have had for 29 years, as if that is clearly an unqualified good thing. At a moment when this election has hit established parties in the balls, when are politicians going to get that they are often the problem? All party leaders have a negative approval here at the moment." You know, it reminds me of a similar situation here in the United States. I have believed for many years that there should be absolutely draconian term limits on pretty much everything. Like I've said before, and people have said this is too far, this is, too extreme, but I've said before, one term for everything. Like you serve one term, and then you have to give up your seat to somebody else. Now you can, and then if you serve your 2-year term in the United States Congress, you can run for the Senate. If you can run for other offices and get elected to the Senate, that's great. Then you get 6 years there, then you're done there. Then you can run for something else. But I think a big part of the problem with government, and the big part of why government, especially the federal government, feels so disconnected from people, is because it's always the same people in the government. Even though we have elections every 2 years, and even though theoretically any member of Congress could lose their seat, every 2 years, there's a massive incumbency advantage in this country because of the way politics works, because of the way fundraising works, because of the way, political parties tend to support people who are already in power for their side, which makes sense, given the way the system works. It makes perfect sense that they do that. But if they didn't, if things didn't work that way, if the law was one term and you're out, or even 2 terms or 3 terms, whatever, like we can agree on what the actual term limit should be later. As long as we agree there should be term limits, and having more turnover among elected officials so that you don't have situations where it's one person holding that office for 30 or 40 or 50 years, which I don't think that is a good thing. I think it's better for the government itself, and it's better for the connection between the government and the people, that there is turnover, that there's constantly new people coming in. And if there was less of a chance of an entrenched politician holding on for dear life to a seat for 30 years, then more people would probably run for office who wouldn't otherwise run, because they'd have more of a shot, because they wouldn't always be running against an incumbent. So I agree. I agree. Established politicians, people holding on to seats for decades is not in general a good thing. And I think one way to fix that is term limits. And I would love to see that happen. I'm not holding my breath. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but it should. And I think it would be an improvement. Siamak, who is beyond disappointed in the left. Since January, I've been called a Zionist, Mossad agent, Islamophobe, imperialist, fascist, not for my views on the war, but for saying the IR must go, the Iranian regime must go. Every attack has come from the left, without exception. Seeing people who claim to care about human rights denying Iranians ours, and even denying the massacres happened. It's crushing. The left may not have lost me. However, I'm sad but unsurprised to say they've lost Iranian Americans, Brits, French, Germans for a generation. Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think maybe part of it is there is just such, and this is not an excuse because I'm on your side on this, but there's such a reflexive anti-Americanism on the left, for good reason. Like I'm not saying the left should be pro-American or should be uncritical of America, especially American foreign policy, but there's such a reflexive anti-Americanism that it compels people to support regimes like the regime in Iran simply because they are opposed to the United States, or they're opposed to Trump. Like, well, if Donald Trump is one of the combatants, one of the involved parties in the war, then whoever he's fighting must be the good guys. And it's not that simple. Clearly, what Trump is doing with the United States military in Iran is wrong, and the kind of thing, and the sort of thing that he should not have done. And people should be against that. But obviously, the regime in Iran is intolerable and is authoritarian and is abusive and brutal. And as you point out, has massacred its own citizens and has cracked down hard on protests, and is the kind of government that nobody, whether you are of Iranian descent or not, nobody should be in favor of that government retaining power. And of course, Iranians would be in favor of that government being toppled, even if the force toppling it would be commanded by Donald Trump, because that's their country. That's where they're from. That's where their families still are. And of course, they want to see their families be free from the tyranny that they have been living under, from the religious dictatorship, the theocracy that they have been living under for generations now. Of course, they want that. Why shouldn't they? And how is it not understandable that they would want that? So it's a complicated situation. Two things can be true at once. You can say Donald Trump is an awful president and an awful human being and is conducting a war in Iran for no legitimate reason that has anything remotely to do with the interests of the United States or any kind of pressing need. There was no, from the American perspective, there was absolutely no need and no utility in starting this war with Iran whatsoever. And you can see that now by the fact that, now members of the administration are basically admitting that nothing was accomplished and their goal is to just try and get out and have things go back to the way they were before Trump started the war. You can acknowledge that that is complete horseshit, while also acknowledging that the Iranian people deserve better than the government that they have had for the last 45, 46 years, and that it is completely understandable that they would have seen the U.S. invasion of Iran as a potential avenue to achieve that. And it doesn't mean that they're monsters. It means that they are in an incredibly difficult situation and they have chosen to hope for the best for their country. And I get that. And I do not condemn them for that. But it's just, it's a complicated situation. And a lot of people, even people on the left, are very prone to flattening things and simplifying things. And if Donald Trump or the United States are involved, then they're automatically the bad guys, and whoever they're fighting are automatically the good guys. And this is not one of those situations. Isaiah, Steve, let's say you're an Apollo astronaut selected to land on the moon. As the commander of the ship, you have the honor of naming both the lunar module and the command service module. Since you're a Superman fan, what names would you give your ship? Which one would be Superman? Which one is Lois Lane? You said Lois Lane. I suppose you mean Lois Lane. I have a few of my own. My ship, Calvin and Hobbes, and Daria and Jane. I like that. So Calvin would be the command module, and Hobbes would be the LEM. I don't know, or maybe vice versa. Well, you're kind of limiting my options here, dude, with the question. You're basically saying I have to name the ships after Superman, and I have to name one Superman, and I have to name one Lois Lane. Obviously, the command module should be Superman, because that's the one that flies to the moon and then flies back. Whereas the lunar module just kind of comes along for the ride to the moon and then lands on the moon and then doesn't return to Earth. So Superman is the command module. And I don't like the idea of naming the lunar module after Lois, though. Like the lunar module doesn't read Lois, although I guess lunar Lois, they both start with L, so that makes sense. But why not name the command module Superman and name the LEM Nightwing, which is not only, it's the name of Dick Grayson's adult superhero identity, and he's one of my very favorite characters, but also Nightwing was Superman's alias in the Bottle City of Kandor, so they are both Superman related. So Superman is the command module, and Nightwing is the lunar module. Those are my Superman related names for my Apollo spacecraft. Here's one from Dana. Hi, Steve. Happy Friday. Did you have a good birthday? Yes, my birthday was earlier this week. Thank you, Dana. Thank you to everybody who said happy birthday. I did have a good birthday. I went for a walk in the morning, and it was a beautiful day. It was sunny, but not too hot. and just had a lovely morning, and watched an Orson Welles movie that I had not seen, that I have wanted to see for years but have never actually gotten around to watching, which was The Trial, his adaptation of the Kafka novel starring Anthony Perkins. Um, it was interesting. I can't honestly say that I loved it. It's a little long. It gets a little, it kind of meanders in spots, but real obviously beautifully directed. Really amazing cinematography, some really beautiful shots, and a really nice sort of surreal, dreamlike quality to the whole thing. So there are parts of it that I really liked, even though I did feel like it dragged on a bit. So I did that. That was great. And then what else? I got Burger King for dinner and a milkshake to treat myself. And then I went to bed super early. I think I went to bed at like 8 o'clock. So I had a great birthday. I had a goddamn great birthday. That's what I did. And I think actually wasn't my birthday was Tuesday, wasn't it? No, my birthday. Yeah, my birthday was Tuesday. So I also watched wrestling from the night before because I watched Monday Night Raw on Tuesday. Um, so I watched wrestling. I watched Orson Welles. I went for a walk. I got some Burger King. I went to bed early. It was a fucking amazing birthday. M.W. Ridra is still a leftist, just grumpy. Boy, there's a lot of that going around. Does it seem like some leftists misinterpret things in the least charitable way to get the high of scolding someone? I mentioned on a Discord chat that I'm finally doing the low carb thing because my doctor told me I might go blind if I don't get my blood sugar under control, and that motivated me more than him telling me the sugar could considerably shorten my lifespan. Apparently, that is the exact same as if I had said that blind people are better off dead. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. It's not you. I agree. That is completely unreasonable and uncharitable. I mean, look, I believe very much that we all need to be more thoughtful and more sensitive to people who come from different backgrounds or have very different life experiences than we do, and to be more sensitive about the way we talk about people with disabilities and the way we refer to people with disabilities or the existence of disabilities in our everyday language. Like, I think it's completely reasonable to say we should watch the sort of casual ableism that we throw into our conversations. I think that's a completely valid concern, and we should all be more concerned about that and more aware of that. But at the same time, I mean, I don't think you are doing anything wrong or saying anything wrong, or saying anything that is dehumanizing to blind people if you say that the prospect of losing your ability to see was incredibly motivating for you to change your diet and change your lifestyle to avoid that. Like, I don't think that reflects poorly on you, and I don't think that reflects any insensitivity on your part toward the experiences of blind people. I did that. And I mean, again, a caveat, I say that as a sighted person. So if there are blind folks who hear this and you want to chime in and say, actually, it's completely fucked up, and I'm totally on the side of the people who, yelled at him for it, like that, that's please, share your opinions. But it, I it seems to me like an incredibly uncharitable reaction. Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. So for what it's worth, I think you are completely feeling reasonably about this. Joe McClory, thank you for the Every Moderate Democrat on Trans Rights video. Couldn't help but want a center Dem version of the Quiet Parts Out Loud vids, but that would just always be, I can't support that, or my billionaire donors would leave me. Do you have any more of these planned? I often wonder if long term the Dem centrists may do more to lead the nation right, even more than Republicans do, or at the very least, they feel like they're paving the way for the right to keep us from going left. Thoughts? I definitely agree with that last thought. I definitely believe that Democrats, like the ones I am satirizing in that video, are certainly making it a lot more difficult for the country to move further to the left, which I think it needs to. Clearly, the country needs to move further to the left. I do think Democrats like that are making that a lot more difficult. I think that is right on the money. I don't have any other ideas for that kind of video right now. The Every Moderate Democrat on Trans Rights video was a very specific idea that came to me. I think I can't remember if I was listening to, I think I was listening to an NPR story recently about trans athletes and the efforts to have trans athletes be included, and then the effort from the opposite side, which has been the prevailing side recently, unfortunately, to banish trans people, especially trans women, from sports. And I was listening to an NPR story about something to do with that, and the phrase came into my mind. I strongly believe that trans people deserve some of the rights as everyone else. That was the first line of it that I had. And I was listening to something related to, trans equality or the trans rights movement, trans people in sports specifically. And that line just kind of floated into my head. And I thought, I've got to write that. And so that's where it came from. So if I get another sort of epiphany like that for a way to kind of satirize moderate Democrats, like I did in that video, I will absolutely do it. I will absolutely do it. But I don't have any other plans for it right now. And to be honest, I mean, even though I mean everything I said in that video, and I strongly believe that people like the guy I'm satirizing in that video are on the wrong side of history and are not helping. I also think that, Republicans are orders of magnitude worse and more dangerous. And so I don't want to send the message of, well, both sides are bad. Like, no, there are bad people on this side who need to be called out and need to be either pushed to change or just kind of pushed aside for somebody more progressive. But on the right, it's just nothing but nightmares. It's not even, there is no equivalent. And I don't want to give the impression through my videos that I think there is an equivalent, because there's not, but at the same time, the guy I'm satirizing in that video sucks and deserves to be made fun of and deserves to be, his hypocrisy and his failings when it comes to trans rights need to be pointed out. And his cowardice needs to be pointed out. So yeah, but no, if I could think of another topic to do something like that, I would do it, but I don't want to push as hard in that direction as I push against the right, because I just think there is no comparison. There's no equivalence. Russell, hey, Steve, forgive this contentious question, but I manage a rather large C-store, one of the biggest in the company, and we are located downtown. And unfortunately, we have a lot of issues regarding thefts, people harassing our customers for things like money and cigarettes. One of the things I don't like about my job is we have the slot machines referred to as bank shot or skilled games. It's basically slots. And these people who steal from us spend money in the bank shot machines and then steal, continued with Russell's member question, steal. I look insensitive when I do my job, call the police, and they get arrested. Why is that? We live in a capitalist country. We need to survive. You do your channel, I manage a store. The problem is people. So the problems that exist in our society, nor do they care. They want to point fingers at the bad sales associates and police. To be honest, it's quite exhausting. My suggestion to those who are insensitive is, why don't you deal with these people on a daily basis? Practice what you preach. If you are convinced that you're in the right, why do you give a fuck? Like, why do you care? If you're doing your job and the people that you call the cops on and kick out of the store or whatever deserve that because they're harassing other customers or because they're stealing, well, then why does it bother you what other people think? Who gives a fuck what other people think? If you are firm in your conviction that you're doing your job and you're in the right, who gives a fuck what other people think? I mean, seriously. We're all adults here. if you're in the right and you're doing what you have to do, you're doing what you were hired to do, and you're not, you're not losing any sleep over it, then who gives a fuck what other people think? Like, seriously. If you think the people that are upset with you about it might have a point and might be upset for a reason, and maybe you think like there are larger issues at play that are, compelling the people who steal from your store to do so, or compelling the people who harass people in your store to do so, and you feel a certain kind of way about that, that's a different issue. But if your problem is you're just doing your job, but people point fingers and vilify you, but if you're convinced that you're doing the right thing, or you're doing the only thing you can do to keep your job, or whatever the situation is, who gives a fuck what other people? Well, people think whatever the fuck they want to think. Like, seriously. The tired 30-something. So, hey, may as well ask a random question at the last minute. How have you ever dealt with unexpected and quick expectations or duties being thrust upon you in your life? My sole immediate family member is going through some health issues. They should be okay, but many things have fallen to me in the meantime. As a disabled individual, it just feels like trying to spin plates while hoping none fall down, even though everything is leagues harder due to my physical and mental disability. Tips? Well, not having been in that situation where I've had to deal with that sort of thing while also dealing with my own disabilities, I don't know what that's like, so I don't know exactly what your situation is. But I would say always remember that you have the right to assert, what is best for you. And even though you do have these added responsibilities, and even though there is a lot of things, you say that a lot of things have sort of fallen to you, and you want to step up and take care of these things, at the same time, you have your own needs, you have your own limitations. And it is completely fine for you to say, look, I know you're counting on me for this. I am going to take care of this. You don't have to worry about it, but I need a little bit of time. I need a little bit of time to myself. I need to go over here and handle my shit for a little bit. I will make sure you're taken care of until I get back. And then when I come back, I will deal with whatever I need to deal with, but I need to go take care of my shit for now, or even if it's just, I just need a break, like I'm exhausted. I'm at my limit. You have the right to say, I'm at my limit, and I will come back. I will take care of this. I will take care of you, but I need a little bit of time. Like, that is, do not feel bad about doing that. Do not feel bad about putting yourself first if it's between that and just completely collapsing. That would be my only tip. And again, I don't know the specifics of the situation. I don't know exactly what your situation is in terms of what physical and mental disabilities you're dealing with. But, you're in a situation where this has kind of fallen in your lap and you've had to tag in and take care of some things. And I think that's great. And I think, you're going to want to do that, and you're going to want to fulfill whatever obligations or whatever responsibilities you have. But you also still have a right to look after yourself, and you should do that. And if you need to remind other people that you need to do that, then it's not a bad thing to remind them, but that's really all I can say, given, what I know about the situation. Just don't forget that you can always look out for yourself. It doesn't have to be to the detriment of other people, especially if there are people that are counting on you, but you reserve the right to take care of yourself so that you can then go on and continue to take care of others. JDC, hey Steve, hope your adventures in dentistry went well. Do you share your recent character's opinion on whether Starfleet is a military? Thanks. And thank you also for your well wishes on my adventures in dentistry. Do I share my recent character's opinion on whether Starfleet is a military? Yes, I do. Yes. Yes, I think Starfleet is a military. I actually wish that Star Trek shows would engage with that more directly, because I think that is actually a fascinating contradiction and something that could be really, really interesting if written properly in a show. That's one of the reasons why that What is Starfleet episode from the most recent season of Strange New Worlds is so aggravating to me, because that's the episode that could have dealt with that. You know, Starfleet insists it's not a military. Starfleet insists it's an exploratory agency. It's a scientific agency. It's all about diplomacy and humanitarianism and exploring strange new worlds and making contact with new species. Like, yeah, and it does do all of those things, but it also fights all the wars. And it all, I mean, it's clearly at least in part a military service. You can make the argument that it is not perfectly analogous to a modern day real life military, because it does spend it's kind of like a combination of something like the military and the Peace Corps. It's like if you kind of smush those together into one service. But it is undeniably military, at least in part. And yet in the shows, we see repeatedly Starfleet, like representatives of Starfleet, flat out denying that, saying, no, it's not military. And I think that's a fascinating contradiction. And I wish that the shows would make more use of that, in writing stories. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that every week. Like, it's not the kind of thing you could just make the entire show about that, but it would be worth acknowledging every once in a while if somebody has a really good story, that calls for that, or that could use that. Because I just think it's a really fascinating contradiction. But no, if you ask my opinion, do I agree with my character in the Starfleet casualty officer? Yes, I do. Yes, the characters don't always speak exactly for me, but in that case, in that instance, yes, that is my opinion of Starfleet. Yes. Caitlin L, who deeply apologizes for always submitting in the last 15 minutes. That's okay, because there's one after yours, so don't feel too bad, Caitlin. I originally had a different question, but it can wait. I tested Gemini for the first time last night, and it was both very funny and absurd. People call them automated sycophancy, but I think a better term is cold reading. It used all the same techniques. They really are mirrors, spitting back whatever you feed them with canny timing. In a way, it's amazing how much it picks up from vocab choices. But how scary do you think it is that people are letting themselves get sucked in by that? No, I agree with you. It is, and I've never thought of it in terms of cold reading, but that is a really interesting way to look at it, because it is kind of what they do. And you mentioned that they are mirrors. Yeah, I think of it a lot of times as not so much cold reading, but personality mirroring. And yes, it is discouraging that so many people get taken in by it and forget the fact that, as I said in my Richard Dawkins video, and reiterated on Wednesday's live stream with Dana when we talked about this a little bit, they forget that it is a product. Like when you use Gemini or ChatGPT or any other AI interface, you are using a product. Like, it's not a person. It's not your friend. It may have been programmed to be friendly to you, and that's fine, but it's not a real person. And you can't have a relationship with it in the same way that you would have a relationship with another human being. It is a product. It is something that you can use for certain purposes, for not nearly as many purposes as the AI companies want you to believe, but for certain purposes, you can use it as a tool or as a toy, to play with and have fun with and see, what can this fucking thing do? Or let's see what happens when I do. Like, you can do that, but don't ever forget that it's a product, and the problem is, because it does, and not yet Gemini and Chat, they all do this. They all do this thing where they flatter you, they agree with you, they reiterate the points that you make. They almost never contradict you or argue with you or tell you you're wrong. They flatter you. They take on, as you pointed out, they take on your characteristics, your verbal tics, what have you, and it's all very sophisticated and very well done. And these LLMs have been developed to a point where they're really good at that sort of thing. But yeah, you should not take that as an indication of consciousness or sentience or whatever else people wrongfully think that it is. That's not what it is. It's it's not. It's a product. Um, and but of course, I mean, people fall for these things when other human beings do it too. You know, personality mirroring, cold reading, telling people what they want to hear, flattering people, agreeing with people, telling them that they're so right. Like that works on a person to person basis too. A lot of people are just really gullible and really susceptible to that approach. And it's unfortunate because that's how a lot of people get conned and a lot of people get talked into shit and a lot of people get fucked over. And a lot of scumbags make a lot of money and get a lot of power and influence that they don't deserve because they take advantage of suckers like that. Um, but it's not like LLMs or the creators of LLMs invented that. They just, they borrowed that from con artists and psychopaths. So maybe that should tell you about how careful you should be and how aware you should be when you're using these things. And finally, Air One Fire, Dr. Noah's son and father. Sigh, Hativ. I like that. What do you think about First Contact? On my rewatch, 2, 3, and 6 are my favorites. 8 seems a little substandard. Simple shots of faces alternating between characters, tons of expository dialogue, characters trading information, giving orders, responding, etc. The opening Borg sequence and battle were weak, I thought. It has good stuff, but feels very TV-like. Thoughts? Also, I closed my business and started to job seek and learn skills, which I fucking hate. Wish me luck. Best wishes. Well, good luck. I wish you nothing but the best on that. When I first saw First Contact, when I saw First Contact in the theater when it opened, I remember being a little disappointed in it. I didn't think it was bad, but I felt like it was lacking something. Especially, I really was underwhelmed by the beginning. I thought the opening was really rushed. Like everything from the opening up until they time travel back to, I felt like, man, they are just blowing through this. Like it felt really rushed. But now I watch the movie and I really don't feel that way. Now I watch it and I feel like that opening, that first act, which still goes by really fast, but I feel like that it feels right to me now. The pace feels right. And I'm glad that they get to the point as quickly as they do instead of fucking around for half an hour before they go back in time and try to stop the Borg. Like I think that it's a good, pace and a good way to get into that story. Um, I don't know if I agree with you about it being TV like. I mean, you're right that there are a lot of the conversations between characters are shot in pretty standard coverage. It is, the old shot reverse shot construction. Um, and I guess that can read as TV like, but I mean, movies were doing that long before TV was invented, and I that just doesn't automatically read TV to me. And the scope of it, the scale of it, the sets, it's like it doesn't feel TV-ish to me. Um, Generations feels more TV-ish to me than um, First Contact does, and a lot of that is because they're literally shooting on the TV sets. I mean, the sets look good. Like I think that the TV sets look good in the movie, and they look good in that widescreen format. But still, like they're literally shooting on the sets from the TV show. In many cases, wearing like the exact same costumes, etc. So I mean, Generations feels more TV-ish to me than First Contact does. First Contact feels more like a clean break from the TV show and moving into a different direction. So I don't really agree with you there. But I mean, like, I don't think I would ever rate First Contact any higher than third, which is still really high when you consider there have been 13 theatrical Star Trek movies. To rate First Contact as the third best one, that's really fucking high. But I would never rate it any higher than that. I would never rate it any higher than Star Trek 6 or Star Trek 2. And depending on what mood I'm in, I might not rate it any higher than Star Trek Beyond either. I might put Star Trek Beyond at number 3 and put First Contact in at number 4. But I would always rate First Contact relatively high. But I think it's like the absolute pinnacle, like the best of the best Star Trek movie ever? No, I don't think so. But I think I like it. I think I like it more than you do. Yeah, but I can relate because, like I said, the first time I watched it, I was a little underwhelmed, especially by the beginning. All right, that is it for the patron member questions. Let me reboot my my live chat viewer, and while I'm doing that, I will tell you about how in a minute, after I get through with rebooting the live chat viewer, I'm going to show you a brand new Stuffy and Friends short, because this is the time of the show when I have finished the patron questions and I'm about to dive into the live chat. But in between, we catch up with Stuffy and the gang. And this is a Stuffy short that will go live on its own as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow. But and for the chat questions, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to start a Q&A. Just because it'll be easier to find the questions in the live chat. But anyway, it goes live as a standalone YouTube short tomorrow at noon Eastern on this channel. But because you are discerning enough to be watching this live stream right now, you get to see it before anybody else. So please, 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 please enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Internet's out. You want to watch a DVD?
Sure.
Twilight Zone?
Always a good choice.
You know, I think this Twilight Zone box set might be one of my most prized possessions. God, what a great show.
Well, technically, the Twilight Zone box set is mine.
How do you figure?
Because you gave it to me.
That's not how I remember it. What are we going to do about this?
We live together. We both have free access to the DVD shelf. Does it really matter who owns what?
It's the principle of the thing. Private ownership is what separates us from the animals.
I am an animal, and by definition, so are you.
You know what I mean. We need an arbiter to resolve this dispute.
Like who?
An impartial judge. Somebody who doesn't give a shit about what either one of us wants.
What the hell are you blabbering on about?
We need you to decide who the Twilight Zone box set belongs to, me or Stuffy.
What the fuck's that to me?
Nothing.
That's why you're the perfect judge. That's why we've given you the power.
Right then, I accept.
Okay, so I got that box set almost 20 years ago,
And when I moved to Norfolk, you gave the box set to me as a gift.
and then you moved back and I reassumed ownership.
That's not how gifts work.
The gift was conditional.
We never agreed on that.
It was implied. It's the social contract.
Oi, shut your traps. The DVDs belong to Stuffy.
What? Why?
Yes, why? I'm curious.
Because I bloody well say so, that's why.
Because I've got no time to listen to you two have a wank off over the phone. My date will be here soon.
You have a date? That's wonderful.
Is it a prostitute?
Steve.
He is a male escort.
You're not meant to call them prostitutes anymore, you politically incorrect bastard.
That settles that, I suppose.
Yeah. Unbelievable. A judge who solicits sex workers. And he rules against me after I got him appointed. And we call that justice. And we call that justice. Caitlin agrees with Jack, apparently. The DVDs do belong to Stuffy. Is that now, do you think that legally that is the proper decision, or is that just your pro-Stuffy bias? Thank you. Simon noticed on Jack's phone. Yes. Apparently on Jack's phone and Jack's contacts, my phone number is listed as gobshite number 1. So, all right. Now I saw a super chat come in here from John Burns, who said, Starfleet comment, James T. Kirk, not a democracy. Well, there you go. So you're going to argue with Captain Kirk. And also Don Quixote sent in a member message that said, hi, Steve, did you see that a station in Cincinnati is using the WKRP call letters? If you watch the show, were you a Jennifer or a Bailey guy? it's been so long since I watched it. I guess I'm a Jennifer guy because I remember Jennifer better. But yes, I did see this. Apparently, there was another station, a low power station somewhere else that already had the WKRP letters, and the station in Cincinnati made some kind of a deal to buy the call letters from that station or trade call letters or something. So yes, now there is an actual radio station in Cincinnati with the call letters WKRP, which is pretty cool. Let me see here. Oh, there's Damien Williams sent one too. Thank you. I had to scroll up a little. Thank you, my friend. I would have missed it. Debbie sent a super chat, said happy belated birthday. Thank you, Debbie. Ex Demonox sent a super chat as well. Thank you for that, my friend. Says, it is my civic duty and moral obligation to inform Steve about the existence of Ernest and the Dreamstone. I can't wait till it comes out. Oh, I don't know about this. I'm going to have to look this up. And Damien's member message says, hey, Steve, I know your DC loves. What are your favorite Marvel heroes? Good question. I wish, as is the case with a lot of my favorites, it's not very adventurous. It's probably Spider-Man, and after Spider-Man, the Hulk. I wish I could, and I really, about 20 years ago when I was in a very heavy comics phase and I was making an effort to go back and read like the classic runs from the major characters, I loved the Frank Miller, Klaus Janson run on Daredevil. I haven't really read any Daredevil other than that, but that Frank Miller run from the early 80s is just outstanding. So I would throw Daredevil in there as well, but my heart truly belongs to Spider-Man and to a lesser extent to the Hulk. Member message from Kirok, who says, I always wanted to ask you because I think we may think alike on this, but I could be wrong. How do you feel about the remastered version of Star Wars? I know you watch 4K 77, but do you ever watch the 2011 remastered versions? I have watched them. I think I have those. I have that DVD release where they released all three of them. I have watched them, yeah. But I mean, if I want to watch Star Wars, I watch 4K 77. That's the version that I watch. I'm looking forward to the actual official release of the original theatrical cut, which is coming out next year for the 50th anniversary. And hopefully that will then be followed by like a Blu-ray release, because I would love to get like a proper official, presumably very high quality, release of the original theatrical cut of Star Wars. That would be great. But no, 4K 77 is my preferred way to watch it. But yes, I have watched the 2011 remasters. Let me go to the questions section and go through a couple of these. Kane20C says, does this thing work? Yes, it does. Culture Crash AL says, got any recommendations on Baltimore neighborhoods? We're moving there in just about a year. Unfortunately, no, I don't really know the town that well. I've visited there, but I haven't spent nearly enough time there to be able to recommend like specific neighborhoods to you. So I'm afraid I'm no good as far as that goes. Cynical Optimist 1884 says, hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. Have you seen the Ronald D. Moore reimagining of Battlestar Galactica? And if so, what did you think? If not, do you have any plans to see it? I have seen the first season, and I thought it was great, and then I never went back to it. There are a couple of shows that I have done that to, and I'm not really sure why. But I was given the first season of Battlestar Galactica, of the Ronald Moore Battlestar Galactica, on DVD. I got the DVD box set for my birthday or Christmas one year and watched it and thought it was just outstanding. I thought, damn, this is good. And then I just never followed up and watched the rest of it. So one of these days, I'm sure I will. I would like to see the rest of it. But from what I've seen of it, I thought it was great. Megatherium says, thoughts on Babylon 5 and Farscape. I've not seen you cover it, though I may have missed coverage on it and you may not have watched it. I have actually never watched Farscape. But I have watched Babylon 5. I watched Babylon 5 when it originally aired way back in the 90s, and I rewatched it all the way through several years ago. I think Babylon 5 is great. Just because I haven't made a video about it doesn't mean I haven't watched it and I don't like it. I think it's great. But I've never seen Farscape. But Babylon 5 I think is outstanding. CMX says, hey, does this thing work? It's a question, damn it. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it does work. Kirok says, I want a Stuffy interaction, but would be a great question. Well, I mean, what do you want to ask Stuffy a question? Do you want Stuffy to like offer you his greetings? I mean, you can't just ask for a stuff. I'm not going to bother Stuffy if all you've got is, I want an interaction. He's not a trained SEAL. You know, he's a person, man. He's not an LLM. He's a person. Cast Iron Chaos also agrees that the DVDs belong to Stuffy. And by the way, as the author of the skit, yes, according to the terms presented in the video, yes, the DVDs do rightfully belong to Stuffy, because that is how gifts work, actually. My character gave them to Stuffy as a gift with no understanding that they would ever be returned under any circumstances. So they belong to, yeah. So yes, the DVDs belong to Stuffy. To me, that is the correct answer. But of course, my character in the short disagrees. Cast Iron Chaos says the lunar lander should be called the Supermobile. I like that. There you go. Zoxion says, do you have a fave hero from comics outside the big two? Ooh. Who would that be? I'm trying to think. Maybe, I don't know. I can't think of anybody. I was going to say Alan Quartermain from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Daryl Letts says, okay, Steve, I work at Target and recently had a training on diversity and tolerance. One slur word was boomer, which, being a baby boomer, being called that didn't bother me. Would you call boomer a slur? No, I would not. Not every disrespectful term is a slur. 255 AD says, question, with regard to my question, would it make a difference what age they got out? Like, suppose they were raised by fascists and stopped believing it at like 16 or 17. That would make a difference. And also, it might also make a difference how long each individual had been in the community, right? Like, if the reformed fascist had been there for many years and had never caused any trouble and seemed to be a good, upstanding member of the community, and the people complaining about them were relatively recent, and it didn't seem like that there was any interaction between them and the reformed fascists that would have, motivated them to ask for them to be removed, then that might be a different situation. Yeah. But in principle, I mean, I feel like your question was asking, like, would you have a problem with doing something like that? Just the general idea of that. And the answer is no. But are there circumstances where I wouldn't like automatically ban the reformed fascists? Yeah, sure. Zulu Romeo says, planning to visit the UK at any time. I highly recommend Scotland. No plans. Although I would love to visit Scotland at some point. I would love to see Scotland, but no plans anytime soon. Dana says, do you think George Lucas made the changes to the re-release versions to mess with fans so that he could then re-release the original cut and make more gobs of money? I think it was actually a combination of George Lucas loving money and George Lucas being a neurotic perfectionist who just couldn't stop tinkering with his movies. I think both of those are probably equally responsible. I think George Lucas is just the kind of guy who he was never 100% happy with those movies, and he realized that he had the ability to go back and, as he saw it, fix things, and so he did it. I think he's even said that at interviews. Like, he doesn't really believe that a movie is ever finally finished. Like, you can always, if you're the artist, you can always go back and tinker with it. And he had examples from art history of like great artists who would go back and, touch up their paintings after many years, or fix things after the work had been finished. They would go back and revisit it and change it a little bit because they felt like it needed something. So I think it's that, but obviously George Lucas loves money and knows how to make money. And yes, I'm quite sure that that was a major factor in the special editions and wanting to get people to pay to see the movies in theaters again. I'm quite sure that was a major motivation. Cynical Optimist says, "Hey Steve, highly recommend you get back into Battlestar Galactica. My housemate and I recently watched Fringe and are currently watching The 100. Have you seen either show? Recommend them if not. I have seen neither of them. So thank you for the recommendation." The 255 AD also says, "Do you think the scenario I laid out in my question ever actually happens? Do you think another response is minorities don't try to get ex-right wingers ostracized, so it's not worth entertaining?" I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Like if an ex-right winger is behaving themselves and is not causing trouble and is not giving off the impression that they are an unsafe person, then yeah, I mean, that's not in my experience, that's not really a thing. At least not on any kind of regular basis. So yeah, the question that may be a scenario that nobody will ever have to actually deal with. So I do think that is a valid response. I mean, does it ever actually I honestly don't know. I honestly don't. I would imagine it happens every once in a while, but I honestly don't know. Sinister Intelligence says First Contact was sleeker and more dynamic than the other films. It had a lot of action and power to it. The battle scene was basically Wolf 359 on a blockbuster budget. Oh, the 90s. Yeah, I mean, First Contact is more than sufficiently cinematic for my taste. Zulu Romeo says, "Seeing as we're talking 2000s shows, did you ever see Lost? And if so, what did you think of it?" I have never watched a single episode of Lost. Not because I was avoiding it, just while it was on, it just didn't seem interesting to me. And again, it's one that I might go back and not revisit, but I might go back and watch at some point. But it's not. I'm not like, oh man, I've got to make time to watch Lost one of these days. Like it never, I never watched it and I never got the impression I was missing out. Now, it may well be a great show. I'm not saying that I expect it to be a rotten show or anything, but it's a hole in my viewership that I am not, feeling any great urge to plug. Cynical Optimist says, "Have you seen Andor season 2? I know you weren't too hot on the first season, so curious to hear if you like season 2 better." I thought season 2 was better. I thought the time jumps and, covering more territory in the same number of episodes helped. It still had a lot of the same problems I had with the first season, which is there are still episodes where there's just nothing happening. But more happens cumulatively than than in the first season. So that was good. And also I wasn't a huge fan of the ending where they seam it up perfectly with Rogue One. I just feel like there's a more artful way to do that. I do like the fact that they added in the wrinkle of, let's just say the legacy of Cassian to avoid obvious spoilers. They put in that little establishment of, well, Cassian dies, but, part of him will live on, let's say. That was not part of Rogue One. And I thought that was nice. But the whole thing of like, okay, because Rogue One did the same thing at the end of Rogue One, where they felt like they had to bring it right up to the beginning of Star Wars. And Andor did the same thing. The end of Andor was like, well, we have to bring this right up to the beginning of Rogue One. And I just don't think that's a very artful thing. I feel like even though Andor is a prequel to Rogue One, and even though it is very much about sort of setting the table for Rogue One, it's still its own thing. And I think there must have been a way to end it in a satisfying way that still pointed to Rogue One and let you know that that was coming, without doing the thing where like they literally walk the characters right up to where they are at the beginning of Rogue One. That's just, I don't think that's a very satisfying ending. I don't think it's creative. It didn't impress me. But there were other things about season 2 of Andor that I liked. I thought again, Luthen was my favorite part. I loved Luthen. I still had the impression of, when Luthen wasn't on screen, I wonder what Luthen's doing. Like most of the rest of these people are boring the fuck out of me. What's Luthen doing? And I thought his story and his resolution, like what happened to him, was very well done. Was exactly what it should have been. I thought that episode, the sort of the end of Luthen, was very good. I thought Benjamin Bratt was good as Bail Organa. I thought he did a really good job stepping in for Jimmy Smits. And as someone who is a massive Jimmy Smits fan, those are big shoes to fill. Even though Jimmy Smits never had a goddamn thing to do in Star Wars other than just stand there and say some not terribly great dialogue. But still, it's Jimmy Smits, and I love him. I thought Benjamin Bratt did great stepping into that character. Yeah. And I thought... I can't remember her fucking name. The senator who goes on to become a rebel leader. I can't remember her fucking name. But her speech I thought was good. But yes, I mean, I'd say more than season one. There were parts of it that I liked, but it, and I do think season two is an improvement, but like it's still, I still had a lot of the same problems with it. I still admire it. I admire it greatly for its politics, for its unabashed anti-fascism, for its message, and for what it's about and what it's. I think all of that is fantastic, and for that reason, I'm very glad that it was made and very glad that it exists. And if people watch that and become more, politically aware and politically conscious, I think that's great. And it's definitely worth me thinking the show was kind of boring a lot of the time. Yeah, Mon Mothma. Oh, sorry that I forgot the name of a character who means absolutely nothing in the Star Wars movies and is boring as fuck for most of Andor. Sorry. You forgot Mon Mothma? Oh, she's barely in the movies, and she's in Andor a lot, but she's almost never doing anything interesting. And then she gives a really good speech, and then she gets evacuated. So good for her. But yeah, I mean, that's basically my thoughts on Andor. 255 AD says they've been releasing some of the original series Doctor Who episodes with new effects. Is that less defensible than the Star Wars special editions, since it's not even the original creators? I mean, I would have to watch it and make my own judgment. I mean, personally, I don't think it was necessary for George Lucas to change anything about Star Wars. I thought the original Star Wars trilogy was just fine the way it was. I don't think it needed new special effects or anything. I thought those movies were fine the way they were. But they were George Lucas's, and he wanted to change them, so that was his right as the artist to do it. They added new special effects to Star Trek about 10 or 15 years ago. They redid the original special effects with new effects. The new effects look great. They are integrated into the episodes very well. Like it's, if you didn't know any better, you'd think that the show just always looked like that. Like they did a really good job. Was it necessary? No. Or was there anything wrong with the original special effects from Star Trek? No. I mean, they looked primitive compared to modern special effects, but so what? They were what they were. The show was what it was. Should they digitally reskin the set so that the sets look better? Like, where do you draw the line? So I imagine I would probably think the same thing about new special effects on classic Doctor Who episodes. If it's well done and it looks good and it doesn't detract from the experience of watching the show, then it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But is it necessary? No. Does it send the wrong message? I think yes, it does. That, well, if these special effects from a show from the 60s or the 70s don't stand up to the level of quality we've become accustomed to in the 2020s, well, then they should be changed. They should be updated. Like, I feel like that sets a bad precedent. So yeah, I mean, they might very well look great, and that's fine. But is it necessary? No, I don't think it's ever necessary. Megatherium says, do you ever intend to watch Farscape? Yeah, maybe at some point. Again, it's not at the top of my list, but maybe at some point. Zoxia 1980 says, seen any movies recently you would recommend? I mentioned The Trial earlier, and even though I have problems with it, I would recommend watching it just to say you've seen it, because I do think it's a noteworthy film, and it's worth watching. I watched the Louis Theroux Manosphere documentary on Netflix recently. That was good. And I also watched Louis Theroux's Scientology documentary from like 10 years ago, and I thought that was excellent too. What else have I watched recently? I can't remember. Judy5AD asks, are there any writers you enjoy despite disagreeing with them politically? There's an alternative history writer I really like, despite there being like a neocon undercurrent in his stories. There are probably writers I enjoy that I don't know their personal politics. And, if I found out that they were, more right leaning, that would probably be disappointing. But I would, if the work was good, I would still be able to, enjoy the work. I mean, the first name that comes to mind is Frank Miller in comic books. Now, I haven't enjoyed his more recent work. I think the quality of his work has taken a very significant dip in the last, let's say, 25 years. But Frank Miller's stuff from the 80s and even into the 90s with the Sin City books, I thought was mostly very, very good. And I think even though his politics have gotten more noticeably shitty since 9/11, he's always been kind of libertarian, but there are politically satirical aspects of Dark Knight Returns, for instance, that I can completely get behind. Like, he satirizes the fuck out of Ronald Reagan in Dark Knight Returns, and I think that's great. But he's always had kind of a libertarian streak as in terms of his political philosophy that I don't really agree with. But I have nonetheless enjoyed a lot of his writing. Oh, okay. Isaiah says Calvin would be the Lem because of Spaceman Spiff landing on them. Well, that makes sense. Yes, I'm going to get to the super chats, Keurig. I want to get through to the bottom of the questions first. Please be patient. And Isaiah also says, I think Calvin would be the Lem because it would be the space. Yeah, okay, you said that already. All right, now let me turn to the super chats that I have been neglecting while playing with my new toy of the Q&A. Any Ask Away viewers basis for Steve and Stuffy? Asks John Burns. I have no idea what you mean. I cannot decipher what that question is asking. Wolferman Hart with a super chat says, have you considered AI observations as third regular shtick on your site on top of Star Trek and politics mix? Be the John Stossel of AI absurdity. I don't want to do that as a regular thing. If one of those, if an AI related subject suggests itself, like, I will do it, like with the Richard Dawkins video, or like the video I think I made a video earlier this year, or maybe last year, about AI psychosis, where I invented like my own fictional AI that I worshiped as a god. Or the one I made about the Google Gemini audio overview feature and how just utterly useless I found that to be, like, fascinating in its uselessness. So, I mean, for things like that kind of suggest themselves, I will still make videos about it, but I don't think I'm going to like seek out AI related stuff to make videos about. Kirog with a super chat says, what are your thoughts on the Twilight Zone episode, The Obsolete Man? I really like it. It's a good one. I think it's one of the lesser Burgess Merediths, to be honest. I wouldn't rank it as high as Time Enough at Last, but it's really good. No, I like The Obsolete Man. Here's another one from John Burns. Thank you, my friend. Says, I did a thing and then made it right. Self-checked out items. Grabbed my stuff, left, got close to home and thought, did I pay? Went back, paid, and was glad I wasn't a low-down petty larcenist. Well, good for you, John. Good for you. Here's a member message from Brian Baker. Do you tend to rewatch old shows or watch new shows? And how do you feel about the WWE roster cuts? In terms of TV shows, except with particular shows like MacGyver, or if I'm in a particular mood, maybe like Magnum PI or Highway to Heaven or Knight Rider or something like that. For the most part, with TV shows, most of the shows I watch are new shows. I tend to rewatch old movies more than TV shows, but I do go back and rewatch old TV shows from time to time. Perfect Strangers is another one that I'll go back and rewatch. And how do I feel about the roster cuts? This happens every year, so it doesn't really bother me, but the New Day situation is kind of infuriating because the New Day, well, I think Big E is still there, but Kofi and Xavier, they weren't technically cut. They were offered a reduced contract and they walked away, and good for them. It's a little hard to swallow the company saying, we're restructuring and you, the wrestlers, the only reason any of this exists, need to take less money, while you are also bragging about your record profits and how many tickets you sold to WrestleMania and how you're printing money these last few years. Like, it's a little hard to swallow when the company is saying, things have never been better. We're more profitable than we've ever been. We just had a record run of sellouts and merchandise is through the roof. And our new media deals are just, worth billions of dollars. And oh, by the way, you wrestlers need to take less money. That's bullshit. Especially when you consider that WWE wrestlers are paid a far smaller percentage of overall company revenue than other professional athletes. Like, it's atrocious. I saw a report on it just recently. I think Major League Baseball players are paid on average, if you sort of add everything together, Major League Baseball players' salaries are roughly 50% of total revenue to their teams, right? So for every dollar that a baseball team makes, 50 cents of that goes to the players, roughly, like generally speaking. WWE wrestlers usually get paid between 15 and 20% of company revenue. It is so much lower. And one of the main reasons for that is that wrestlers do not have a union. The reason why baseball players get paid 50% of total revenue, the reason why football players are paid a similar percentage, and also basketball players, although I think with the NBA it might be slightly lower, but major sports leagues, 50%, 45 to 50% of total team revenue going to player salaries, athlete salaries, is basically the standard. And that's because there are players' associations, which are unions that are fighting for fair compensation for the players, without whom the product does not exist. So it's fair for the players to say, since none of this would exist, since this business would not exist except for us, let's at least take 50% of the revenue. That seems fair, right? That seems more than fair. And with wrestlers, it's the exact same thing. With the WWE, the WWE would not exist if those wrestlers were not going out there and fucking up their bodies in the ring and putting on a show for the people. It would not exist. They are necessary. They are the product. They get paid 15% of revenue when other professional athletes are getting paid closer to 50. It is a fucking crime. And that was one of the reasons why the New Day left. Because in this era of untold profitability for WWE, they were being asked to take less money. And to their credit, they said, fuck you. And they walked away. And good for them. They should have. It's an insult. Cast Iron Chaos with a super chat says, one Batman story I found kind of disturbing was The Cult. It felt like Jim Starlin made it really grim and gritty. It's been a while since I read that one. I should go back and reread that one again. John Burns says, was Winston Churchill a great anti-fascist? I mean, I think he kind of was, yeah. I think he has some anti-fascist bona fides for sure. Not that he didn't have his problems. I'm not someone who wants to like lionize Churchill, but I do think he has a claim to being a pretty decent anti-fascist. Yeah. Stephen Clenard with a super chat. I also liked Luthen Rail in Andor, even though he was 100% an accelerationist, and I think accelerationism is horseshit. Am I a hypocrite? More importantly, are you? No, because he's he's a fascinating and compelling fictional character. I don't care whether his politics are politics I would support in real life or not. I mean, he's an amazing character played by an amazing actor. And also, I mean, even though I don't share his, his accelerationist ideals, I do still admire him for fighting against fascism and for, doing what he felt needed to be done. So no, I don't think you're a hypocrite, and I don't think I'm a hypocrite. Oh, Brian Baker, I saw this earlier. I haven't read any details about it, but I saw the headline. ABC filed a complaint versus the FCC about First Amendment violations. Yes. Goddamn right. Good for them. Stephen Clenard says, I would name the two moon modules Green Lantern and Green Lantern and let the nerds argue about which is which. I love that. I love that. Sean Brunzel says, making me feel for wrestlers, Steve. Oh, man. Well, look, whether you like wrestling or not, I think it's only fair to say that the people who make the product possible, the people who enable the company to make those billions in dollars every year deserve a fair share of that money, whether you give a fuck about wrestling as a form of entertainment or not. That's just fair. That's just basic fairness. Without these people, your business would not exist. And you can't even give them half of the revenue? That's bullshit. And you're even restructuring their contracts and asking them to take less money at the same time as you're boasting to your shareholders about how much money your company's making? Fuck you. Fuck you. I will also say this, just in the interest of fairness, even though I do not enjoy its wrestling product, AEW, the other major American wrestling company at the moment. I'm not a fan of AEW's wrestling anymore. That ship sailed for me. I watched it for the first 3 or 4 years, and then, they Cody left and they fired Punk, and I was like, I can't watch this anymore. I just can't do this. This is not my kind of wrestling. But AEW wrestlers, reportedly, now AEW is not a publicly traded company, so the exact figures are not known, but based on reports that people have been able to get their hands on, AEW wrestlers are paid somewhere between 40 and 50% of company revenue. And they don't, and that's Tony Khan, the owner of the company, doing that on his own. Like, AEW wrestlers don't have a union either. They should have a union too. They don't, but the owner of the company is paying them, apparently. Again, this isn't like a fact. This isn't definitely confirmed, but just based on reports, the owner of AEW is paying the wrestlers a far, far, far more fair portion of the company revenue than WWE. So that deserves to be recognized. Let me see. What else have we got? 255 AD asks, do you want to know the politics of the authors you read? I'm not automatically interested. It's not something that I usually am like curious about. If I find out, I find out. And if I find out that they have good politics, I'm like, oh, great, sweet. If I find out if they have shitty politics, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Fuck them. But no, I don't. It's not information that I feel like I need to have. And 255 AD also says, do you think that thing Dawkins wrote kind of came across like an AI article from early 2023? Like before we knew anything about AI and it was still novel. It feels weird writing that in 2026. I agree. Yeah. And it feel that article reads like Dawkins has just discovered this thing called AI and he's interacting with it for the very first time, which also is a little weird since it's been around for a few years now. And even if you're against it and you don't like it and you don't use it, It feels like you should at least have more of an awareness that it's a thing that exists and kind of a general idea of what it is. And Dawkins didn't seem to have any of that. Cast Iron Cast, yeah, I know I am kind of ignoring the chat. I will turn back to the live chat in general here in a second. But since I'm doing a Q&A and asking for questions, like I feel like I should, X Demonox says, most important question ever. Who's your favorite Muppet? Miss Piggy. I was thinking that was a hard question, and then I thought, no, Miss Piggy. Obviously, it's Miss Piggy. Sinister Intelligence says, not a question, but happy blah. I guess that's supposed to be happy birthday. And Sean Brunzel with another super chat says, can only agree. Exactly. Yeah. Let me look at what else is going on in the live chat. Yeah, Brian, the principles of the writer's strike as far as like the wrestlers and compensation. Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of people, like, it's because professional athletes at the major league level, which, for wrestling, that would be WWE, because they get paid so much more at minimum than most other people will ever have in their life. Like, it's easy to not feel sympathy for them. It's easy to say like, oh, I feel so bad for the wrestler who only made a couple $100,000 a year. Poor wrestler, right? I get that. But it's more about the idea of, and then people say that about baseball players as well. Like, oh, I feel so sad for the millionaire baseball players, who are always asking for more money, even though, they play for one contract and they're set for life. Like, I get that. But the point is, the issue is the work of those athletes, the attraction of those athletes, what they do is the entire basis for the business. And if that business is making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars a year, isn't it fair that at least half, if not more, of those billions go to the athletes who make the entire thing possible? Why should owners and executives make more money off of the sweat and blood and tears of the athletes than the athletes do? So it's not about like, well, there's still, a poorly paid WWE wrestler is still making more than any working man. I agree. And I get why you would feel that way, but somebody's making money off of what they do. And shouldn't they make just as much, if not more money off of what they do than some asshole sitting in an office? Oh, Dana's pumpkining. Good night, Dana. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Stephen Clenard. Won't anybody think of the billionaires? Yeah, what about the poor, hardworking stiffs who own the team? Right? Why do you want to take food off of their table? Why do you want to take clothes off of their children's backs? Those poor, rich owners of sports franchises. Let me see what else is going on in the live chat. Oh, Cast Iron Chaos says, I tried this as a super chat, but there was a banned word. Okay, I hate that. Regarding the Zindi, you ever have that dream where the earth is blown up and you're standing in your underwear in front of everyone? Every night. And also, I'm late for school and there's a test. John Burns with a super chat. May you have Zathras life, but not Zathras. That's a Babylon 5 reference. Duralta Trekkie, it's not my birthday today. It was my birthday earlier this week, but thank you very much for the happy birthday wishes. I appreciate that. And Kirog with a super chat. Thank you, my friend, says, I agree. Duralta Trekkie, Killing Game is good. Also, side note, the actor who played the hologram Nazi also played The Drone. Also, I loved Demons and Heroes. Good doctor character arc. Okay, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed those episodes more than I did. John Burns says, you heard the Maple Leafs won the draft lottery? I did not. I don't follow hockey. Gerald Trek, says, I liked your review of The Killing Game, although I don't agree with it. This would not have worked as a single episode, although I would have liked the build up to that show. I think it absolutely would have worked as a single episode. I think if they had gotten to Janeway, if they had gotten to Seven freeing Janeway from the neural inhibitor sooner and ended the show right around when the big explosion happens that reveals the holodeck, like if that had been the end, instead of everything that happens in part two. And that, like if they had tightened up the first half a little bit and left enough room for a resolution, I think it absolutely could have been a 1-part episode. I disagree with you on that. I think it absolutely could have worked as a single episode. Yeah, Brian, exactly. The WWE team that walked away are the same principles as the writer's strike. Fair pay for profit on product. Yeah, especially in the case of those guys of Kofi and Xavier, who have been there for a really long time and have been very successful, have sold a lot of merchandise and made a lot of money for that company and been, top upper mid card, in some cases, main event players for a very long time. Like, it wasn't just like they were two dudes who were asked to take less money that didn't mean anything on the show. They were veterans and they were stars in that company. And to ask them to take a pay cut in the context of the company bragging about how profitable it was a slap in the face, and good for them for walking away. Culture clash. Are they not the Maple Leaves? It's a similar problem for, like, what is the singular of Red Sox? Like, is one member of the Red Sox a Red Sox or a Red Sox? There are differing opinions on this. Deralta Trek, he says, just watch the complete season 3 of Strange New Worlds. And you know what? I liked the season. Could have done without the zombie show, though. Actually, I thought the zombie show was one of the better ones. Like, I didn't think it was outstanding or anything, but based on judged relative to the rest of the season, I thought the zombie show was one of the better ones. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Kirog with a super chat. Weird question. I have a friend who has seen TNG, Voyager, and Enterprise. He asked me what series he should watch next, TOS or Deep Space Nine. What do you recommend? Well, I think since that is the frame of reference, DS9 would make more sense because it fits in with that era a lot more. I mean, if he's already seen TNG and Voyager and he hasn't seen DS9, well, that's DS9 was the other show from that time period. So that just makes more sense to me to say Deep Space Nine. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. Like, it never matters. When people ask, like, which Star Trek, I've never watched Star Trek before, which show should I start with? It doesn't matter. Just pick one. And I would love for people to get away. And I know there are a lot of fans who just utterly disagree with me on this and see it the complete opposite way. But I would love if we could move away from viewing the entire franchise as one show. It's not one show. It's a bunch of different shows set in the same fictional universe. So it doesn't matter if you watch Star Trek or you watch TNG or you watch DS9 or you watch Strange New Worlds. It doesn't matter. Just pick one and watch it and see if you like it. And if you like it, watch one of the other ones. Like, it literally makes no goddamn difference what order you watch it in. Because each show is and ought to be its own thing. Yes, there's connectivity, there's crossovers and stuff, but on the whole, each show is its own thing and should be thought of as its own thing. And again, I know there are Trekkies that are like, no, it's all Star Trek, it's all the same show. I just don't think that makes sense. I just don't think that makes any sense. So yeah, to me, if anybody ever asks me what show should you start with, I say it doesn't matter. Pick the one that looks the most interesting to you and start with that and see if you like it. Let me see here. Pearl May says, don't forget the Smurfs. I like that. Red Stocking, Culture Crash says. Harry Behemoth with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. Says, being a top merch seller, should Danhausen be champ? No, I don't think Danhausen should ever be champ. I mean, if they wanted to have him win like one of the lower card belts for a little while, I don't think that would be a terrible thing. Although, I mean, at this point, even like the US title feels like that. I don't know if Danhausen should even be. And let me clarify, I love Danhausen. I am so happy for him. I am so happy that he's in WWE and that he's doing so well. I'm a huge fan of Danhausen, and I think it's great that he's finally arrived in the big leagues and he's doing so well. But because of the kind of wrestler he is, because of the place he is, holding down in the show, do I think he needs a title? Should he be in the title picture? I don't think so. I think maybe if they wanted to put him into a tag team on a temporary basis and have him win the tag titles, and hold him for a couple of weeks, like I don't think there's any problem with that. But like, should he be the champ, like the world champ? My God, no, that's ridiculous. But at the same time, if the day ever comes when they say, sorry, Danhausen, we're going to need you to take a 50% pay cut because we're restructuring contracts, I think just like, if he continues to have the same level of success into the future that he's had since he came in, I think he would be well within his rights to tell them to stick it up their ass, just like the New Day did. Let me see here. I'm going to wrap things up pretty soon. We've been going for over 2 hours. I just want to make a final check for any last questions that I may have missed. Wolfram Hart says, Steve, you have to admit Star Trek movies 1 and 4 have the same plot random probe run amok heads to Earth. Why does Star Trek like probes? Plus Inner Light and the TOS episode, Kirk talks the probe. You have it's just one of those tropes, I guess. Probes. You go out in space and you're always running into probes. It's just one of those things. 255 AD says, should baseball teams and professional sports teams in general be owned by the players, like as cooperatives? I mean, I wouldn't be against that. I don't think that's like a horrible idea. But even if they're not, the players are entitled to, I would say, at least 50% of the revenue. John Stewart 1701 says, CTE is CTE, whether it's on the field or in the ring. Goddamn right. 255 he also says, when I was a kid, I didn't want to be rich because I thought rich people had to wear tuxedos all the time. Is that a good thing to tell your kid? No. That's like somebody, so you didn't just get that impression from like seeing people on TV or in the movies, like somebody told you rich people always wear tuxedos. Remember that, son. Barbara Openhope says, is Roy Rogers any good now that they brought the franchise back? God, I miss their fried chicken. That's an interesting question because to me, Roy Rogers never went away. There's been a Roy Rogers here in Hagerstown since I've been alive. So there's always, I get Roy Rogers on cheat day a lot. I might, now that you've brought up the subject, I might get it tomorrow. No, wait, there's another restaurant near here that I haven't tried yet that I want to try for my cheat day tomorrow. So maybe no Roy's tomorrow. But, no, we've had a Roy's in Hagerstown since forever. So to me, it never went away. And I've always liked their food. As far as fast food, like on the sliding scale of fast food, I think Roy's has always been pretty good. Kane 20C says, can you do us all a favor and say telekinesis? You want me to pronounce it the way that Captain Kirk says it in Star Trek. He doesn't say telekinesis. He says they have the power to move objects through some sort of telekinesis. Kirak says, I told him TOS because it's only 3 seasons. There you go. See, that's a perfectly valid suggestion. Cast Iron Chaos says, can you claim credit as the author of the trope Kirk talks computers to death? I think that would be a credit shared by the the writers of those various Star Trek episodes. Oh, Cast Iron Chaos says, I passed through Hagerstown last week on my road trip to and from Tennessee. You have some decent antiques. Yes, we do. Yeah, we have. I mean, there are a lot of good antique stores. The ones on Route 40, kind of on the road from Hagerstown to, well, it's on the road from Hagerstown to Frederick, but there's it also you can turn left and go to Boonesboro, or you turn right and go to Boonesboro, or turn left and go to Smithsburg. And on that stretch, yeah, there's Beaver Creek Antiques, and then there's the other one that's right next to it that I can never remember the name of. But yeah, no, there are some good antique stores in Hagerstown. Let me. Okay, I am going to do my wrap up and end the stream. So if anybody has any final comments or questions, go ahead and throw them in the live chat while I'm going through my spiel, and I will answer any final questions or respond to any final observations. And then we will wrap this baby up. So first of all, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your well wishes about my dental surgery, and also for your birthday wishes, because my birthday was earlier this week. I appreciate both, and I appreciate all of you who are either patrons or members of the channel, because I could not do this without your support, and I am so grateful to all of you for that. Whether you sent in a question ahead of time for Ask Away or not, I'm just happy to have your support. If you like what I do here on YouTube, and you would like to continue to help me continue to do it, and you are able to offer regular financial support, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or clicking the join button on the YouTube page to become a channel member. Either way, whether you become a patron or a member, it helps me out a ton. Even if all you can afford is $1 a month, that still helps me out a lot. So if all you can afford is $1 a month, I think that's wonderful, and I appreciate you, and I thank you for that. If you can afford $5 a month, fantastic. $10 a month, super fantastic. Some people even pledge $20 a month, and that is absolutely wonderful, and I am so grateful to all of those people, including some of you who are patrons or members at that level and are watching right now. But any level of support is greatly appreciated. And for any level of support from $1 a month on up, one of the perks that you can take advantage of is you can submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. And those are the questions that I answer in the first part of the show. So if that seems interesting to you, or if you just want to throw me a few bucks a month to help out and help me continue to do this, I invite you to do so. And it's patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button to become a channel member. Also, don't forget that in addition to the YouTube thing, I am a co-host of a couple of awesome podcasts that are a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. There is Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where my very best friend in the whole world, Jason Harding, and I take a fresh look at classic films and see if they deserve their reputation, whatever it is, good or bad. Our most recent Late Seating episode is our review of Inception. From where I sit, it still holds up. I really liked Inception when it first came out. I still liked it a lot when I watched it last week for Late Seating. But you can listen to the new episode of Late Seating and see what Jason and I think of Inception in excruciating and hopefully entertaining detail. And you're going to want to check out the next episode of Late Seating, which comes out in about 2 weeks, because that will be my birthday episode where I got to choose the movie. And the movie I chose, and the movie we are going to review on the next episode of Late Seating, is The Batman from 2021, starring Robert Pattinson and Paul Dano. It's The Batman. It's gonna be great. I'm really looking forward to it. And then after that, Jason will choose the movie for the next episode after that, because May is also Jason's birthday month, and he has not officially chosen his movie yet, but that will be revealed at the end of our review of the Bat. And also Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. Oh, he's so fucking good in that movie. Anyway, but that's next Late Seating. The new Late Seating that you can listen to now is Inception, and you should check that one out too. Also, I am a cast member on the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed satirical improv comedy podcast that Jason and I do with our friend Amanda Billings, where we all play original characters that we have created ourselves who exist in the Star Trek universe. Right now, our characters are all living on Deep Space Nine, and events from the actual Star Trek show kind of take place off to the side, in the margins, in the background of our show, while our characters go off and get involved in our own original adventures. It's a really fun show to make. It's a blast every time we record. And hopefully, if you are a Star Trek fan, if you especially like funny Star Trek stuff, you would enjoy the Ensign's Log. So check that out. Also, do not forget charitylinks.page, which is a document that collects GoFundMes and begging bowls and PayPal links and various funding links for friends of ours who need a helping hand, who need some help paying the bills, keeping the lights on, putting food on the table, etc. If you have any spare change you can throw their way, please, please, please make use of the links in charitylinks.page and help out some friends of ours. And of course, thank you as always to Some Random Geek for maintaining that document and for bringing our attention to these friends of ours in need. I think that's all I have to say. Let me take one last look at the chat here. Of course, the live chat viewer has died on me, so I'll just wing it. Let's just do this the old-fashioned way. Let me see if there are any final questions. No more questions. Okay, good. Let me take one last look through the live chat and see if I have missed anything, or if there is anything demanding a response. Yeah, C-Mac. Yeah, we always break the rules for the birthday. Like, me and Jason are both May babies, so every year for our May, for the episodes we record in May, we break the rules and we can choose any movie we want. This year I chose The Batman, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've watched that movie a million fucking times, but I'm really looking forward to watching it again and talking about it on Late Seating. 255 AD says, one of my parents or grandmother pointed out a rich person in a movie and said, you can tell they're rich because of how they're dressed. And that made me think rich. But that makes sense. Caitlin says, by burning all those free Gemini tokens last night, I also definitively, I saw you mention this earlier. I'm glad you brought this back. I didn't have a chance to talk about it. I definitively proved YouTube's mod bots have been replaced by a Gemini prompt because none of my comments persisted last night. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. If that is in fact what has happened, if that's not just a coincidence, like, that is ridiculous. Thank you, Geek. Happy belated birthday. I appreciate that. John Stewart says, when is Dana going to guest star in another video? I have a script that has been sitting in my Google Drive for literally years, of a skit that Dana and I can both be in. And Dana wouldn't just do the voice, like, she'd be on camera as well. We could do it like as a Zoom call where we're talking in the skit, we're talking to each other, on a Zoom call or something. And I just haven't, like, the two of us haven't actually had time to just do it. But one of these days I'm going to make time and see if Dana has time, and we're going to do this skit, and hopefully it will be worth the wait. I mean, it's not worth the wait for you all because you just found out about it. I just told you about it. But for me, I wrote it years ago and it's just been sitting there, and I'm thinking one of these days we're going to do this one. So one of these days we're going to do this one. And of course, I'm sure Dana will be great because she's always great. And I mean, we're going to do other videos together as well, but it's always fun when I can invite Dana to do something in a video other than one of our live streams, because she's always great. Oh, and Caitlin, did you remember to wish me a happy birthday? I can't remember. Let's just say you did, and thank you very much. Harry Behemoth with the super chat says, with probes like that, imagine the heinies. Yeah, where was that whale probe going? Imagine how big that ass must be. Cast Iron Chaos says, how about Dana plays the role of an AI? That could be interesting. That could be interesting. Dear Alta Trek, he says, have you heard about your government releasing UFO files? Did you read some of them? I've heard about it, but no, I have not read any of them. Yeah. Keep me posted on that, Caitlin, because if that is in fact the case, that like it's determining whether or not to let your comments through because of your amount of Gemini usage, like that's ridiculous. But anyway, all right, I'm going to call it there. Thank you all so much for being here once again. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, and take care, everybody.